moment ago notified around this time on Friday, made a presentation, though it was an interrupted presentation on the Flex Alert on Friday. And you're exactly right. People should have been told sooner, and that is exactly the purpose of the investigation, the purpose of understanding exactly what led to these conditions and how we can mitigate it. Let me just say briefly that we did something else as it relates to notifications, and that is the IOUs, the investor-owned utilities, three of the largest, well-known, San Diego, Sempra, of course, here in Northern California, PG&E. We have protocols and procedures that we worked very hard with the PUC and worked with the respective IOUs on the PSPS protocols. And I know IOUs, PUC, PSPS, if I haven't lost you, perhaps because you're not paying attention, it's a way of expressing this. We have notification protocols that have been improved to address the size and duration of impacts as it relates to de-energization associated with wildfire mitigation at state. Over the weekend, we have demanded of the large investor-owned utilities to initiate those same protocols that they otherwise did not have in place as it relates to this larger event, but to put in place in this event as a way of addressing your appropriate question and I think the appropriate critique that some have expressed, including myself.
Laurel Rosenhall, Cal Matters.
Thank you so much. I have a question about paid family leave, which you've staked out as a priority issue. In June, you reached an agreement with legislative leaders to pass a law giving workers job protections if they take family leave. It passed the Senate, but is still pending in the Assembly. And I'm just wondering if you see any challenges in getting this passed in the next 2 weeks. And given the emphasis you put on the issue, what are you doing to ensure it passes?
We're working hard to ensure it passes. We're committed, not just interested in that process. We've made tremendous progress. It was part of a broader commitment that we have with the legislature. I have all the confidence we'll get it done by the end of this legislative calendar.
Teresa Harrington, EdSource.
Hi, I was wondering about how these outages may be affecting distance learning in terms of the required instructional minutes and how attendance is being taken. Would the instructional minutes be given a waiver if there's a power outage, and would students be given excused absences?
Yeah, well, let me get back to you in the details. Look, obviously, extenuating circumstances. We have to be flexible. We are not ideological. And so that's a right question. As a parent, it's a question we've had, my wife and I, as it relates to people preparing for distance learning. But I want folks to know this. This is very temporary. We're expecting, because of the magnitude of this weather event and the fact that this heat dome and this high pressure system is really set in on the west coast of the United States, that we will start to move away. Temperatures may be hot, but not as hot, not as humid as we've seen. Conditions will present themselves after Wednesday where we could substantially mitigate this. Again, these are not permanent conditions. The de-energization would likely occur in those later peak hours, not in the early morning instructional hours. But nonetheless, if there are extenuating circumstances, absolutely we'll be open to making adjustments and being very mindful of the impacts considerations you set forth.
Sean Wolfock, Mercury News.
Hi, Governor. I was the head of the ISO had said that they'd warned the Public Utilities Commission about the prospect of power shortages of this sort years ago, and somehow that was not heeded. Can you comment on that? Did you know that when you beforehand, or did you just find that out?
Yeah, so it's exactly why we're doing the investigation. We'll have real transparency in that space, well aware of that interaction. Again, there's a shared responsibility here, three-legged stool as it relates to energy in the state of California. The California Energy Commission are forecasting, particularly with extreme weather events and our need to improve that process, those protocols. A framework of what's necessary, protocols and procedures, the application of our energy policy at ISO. We're investigating the same. And the California Public Utilities Commission and the work they have done based on forecasts, based upon the application of these rules as it relates to procurement is also being reviewed. I'm very mindful, and I'll just close, forgive me for being more long-winded in response to your question. I'm very mindful of the dynamics of energy policy, having spent the larger part of last year trying to address PG&E's bankruptcy. We put together an advisory group to lay out the tenets of a more dynamic, more reliable, affordable, dynamic, disaggregated energy system here in the state of California. We have a consultant that laid out the parameters and guide rails of what that energy future would look like. I made a presentation along these lines on multiple occasions, and we are committed to address the immediacy of this challenge, but moreover, the medium and long-term commitment and resolve to a green energy future maintains itself, but with a much more dynamic, responsible, accountable, and focused approach than we've seen over the course of the last number of years. And so that's what the investigation will determine. That's what this process ultimately will resolve.
Karen Luna, LA Times.
Governor, you said you didn't know about the problem with the Cal Ready system when you disclosed the declined numbers a couple weeks ago, and now it sounds like you're saying the state had failed to predict and plan for the current energy shortage, and you're ordering an investigation into it. So is there a communication problem within your administration, or
no?
Why are you not aware of and planning for these major issues?
Well, governing a state as large as ours, it's difficult to predict everything that happens every single day. It's ultimately my responsibility. I thank you for, I think, the appropriateness of the question, but I certainly have a responsibility when things do come to my attention, and I'm being very transparent with you about when they did, which I think is important, to take responsibility to fix them.
Vermel, Politico.
Yes, hi there, Governor. Thanks so much. I was wondering if you support grid regionalization. Excuse me. That was the concept that was introduced by Assemblymember Holden last year. It passed the Assembly, but not the Senate. Supporters say that it could lead to better coordination of sharing electricity supplies across the West, and was wondering if you would be willing to talk with the labor unions that have historically been opposed to this concept.
Well, I have. I've been in constant contact going back to my time as Lieutenant Governor when Governor Brown was exploring regionalization. Not only labor concerns, there's some reliability concerns, and there's concerns in full transparency without getting into the merits and demerits of regionalization as it relates to the current makeup of FERC, the current administration in the White House in Washington, D.C., and the conditions as it relates to PG&E as an entity, our IOUs generally coming out of bankruptcy, and the need to address all of those issues together, including, obviously, the issues that have been raised in the last 48 hours. So the answer is yes, we have been in active conversations. I have personally for a number of years in this space, and it was the collective wisdom of legislative leaders, not just labor leaders, but the entire administration, that in the midst of all of this, particularly with those large IOU questions, because of the resulting bankruptcy of the largest utility in the United States of America, PG&E, that it was best to wait until the process completed itself to get them out of bankruptcy and to begin to stabilize our portfolio. That includes the importance of the IOUs as well as community choice aggregators. Again, this is complicated. And when I start talking about CCAs and FERC, again, I imagine most of you are rolling your eyes, except to say that all of this is connected, and regionalization is certainly one of those things that can not only connect the broader regional grid in terms of the western states, but also connects to the broader conversation as we move forward.
Alex Michelson, Fox 11.
Hi, Governor. In the midst of all this, there's also a presidential campaign this week and a convention, and on Thursday you're going to address the entire country on behalf of California. I'm wondering if you could give us a preview of what we can expect to hear from you and what you're looking for this week.
I appreciate that. So no direct speech on Sunday, more of a engaged conversation with another well-known elected official. But I'm honored and certainly humbled by the privilege of having that time and that moment to engage with someone I have tremendous respect for. You'll learn more about that in the next few days. But more important than anything else, I look forward to the people of the United States learning more about Joe Biden, learning more about Kamala Harris, learning more about this historic moment in our nation's history, quite literally, forgive the Obama-ism, turn the page on the status quo and bring us to the lightness of a much brighter future.
Final question, Taryn Mento, KPBS.
Hi, Governor. Thanks for taking my question. I'm calling from San Diego. Officials have, said the region meets criteria to come off the list for at least 5 days now, so 2 more than the criteria set by you to be removed. So why the delay in confirming that for San Diego? And officials here are also telling us that businesses can't open up when the region is confirmed off the list because the state hasn't released new guidance. So can you clarify why previous guidance from earlier reopening isn't acceptable and when you will release new guidance?
That's right. July 13th, we would have put out guidance that specifically stipulated that nothing subsequent in terms of reopenings can occur until the state health officer concurs. So you're correct in that assessment. However, respectfully, we have data. We have crunched that data. As I anticipate, or as I stated, we anticipate San Diego to come off tomorrow. So I imagine that's good news from perspective of the county. In fact, I think it's extraordinarily good news, speaking on behalf not just of the county, but also of the state of California. We're very encouraged by that. We want to continue to see progress, not just in San Diego, but all across the state. I want to also acknowledge the progress made in Santa Cruz. But as members of some of the elected family members we've been in contact with in Santa Cruz made the point, the dynamics between the counties and the nature of this pandemic and the spread and the like, the dynamic nature is that these things aren't necessarily permanent unless we adapt to modifications and address the transmission, which continues to be very, very challenging for all of us, not only in this state, but across the country. But San Diego, we anticipate come off tomorrow based upon our analysis of the numbers, and we look forward to making that announcement. Well, with that, thank you all for allowing me the privilege of your time. I look forward to coming back, updating you on our efforts. I encourage folks on the Flex the Power to really take advantage of this opportunity, not only to participate in helping us mitigate this very challenging next 72 hours and the impact of this heat wave and this heat dome that now is sitting on top of the great state of California, but also in the process potentially save some dollars. I noted to my wife this morning that just making a 5-degree difference in your temperature setting could save 20% of your cooling costs. And so every incremental thing you do in this space not only will help us in the aggregate to reduce the impacts of de-energization over the next 72 hours, but also can impact the bottom line in terms of your household expenses. As always, please wear a mask, try to avoid mixing as much as possible, continue to physically distance. Thank you again, the bottom of my heart, for all the incredible work you've done as a state. It's demonstrably reflected in those hospitalization numbers, those ICU numbers, and a positivity rate at 6.5%. We need to get it below 5%, and we need to see it below 5% for a period of time. We're moving in the right direction. Let's continue the good work. Thank you all.